Welcome to lecture 2. Already we have studied in lecture 1 about some of the forces. Now we will discuss about the remaining forces, and we in this slide in this lecture we will also discuss on solubility parameter. So, first we had already discussed about van der Waals force of attraction. So, we will start with your ion dipole and ion induced dipole forces. Actually, what happens, the attraction force which exists between your ion and the dipole is called as your ion dipole attraction force, which we have already discussed by taking example of sodium chloride and water. So, we will begin with ion induced dipole forces. So, in this case, suppose we have a ion Ki and it the attraction force which exists between Ki and I2 is a non-polar, it is a non-polar molecule, and this is a ionic compound. Ki is ionic compound and I2 is non-polar in nature. Now, this Ki has the ability to induce dipole in I2 and it forms a complex with this Ki forms a complex with I2s, and this attraction force is known as your ion induced dipole force. Then comes ion ion interaction. Now, in ion ion interaction, what happens? The force of attraction which exists between two ions. Now, mostly these ionic compounds are strongly bound to each other by electrostatic force of attraction, as they have electrovalent bond, they form electrovalent bonds. And so, basically when we discuss about this ion ion interaction, we discuss about the salt formation. So, what happens if two components suppose if one components have two parts, one is your cation and one is your anion, and the other component also has two parts, that is your cation and the anion, then the cation of one component attracts the anion of the other component, and the anion of the first component attracts the cation of the second component, and basically it is mainly used while determining the solubility of the solids forms and while calculating pK and Pa and pH, and when we study dissolution. And then comes the hydrogen bonds. These hydrogen bonds actually this occurs when hydrogen atom is present and electronegative atoms like nitrogen, oxygen and fluoride atoms are present, as these are electronegative atoms. So, as these are electronegative atoms, this hydrogen is positive in nature. So, and it is due to its small size, it gets and due to its large electrostatic field, it gets attracted towards these negative atoms of a compound, and it forms a hydrogen bridge between these hydrogen atom and between these electronegative atoms. So, this is also called as hydrogen bond, and we all know that due to the presence of hydrogen bond, water behaves in a very peculiar manner, and it has the highest dielectric constant, which makes it the most suitable polar solvent, and it has the low vapor pressure, it has high boiling pressure. So, this hydrogen bond is very important when a compound contains any of these three electronegative atoms, and these due to these hydrogen bonds, they the water molecules also or polar molecules easily solvates these atoms, and solubilization or dissolution occurs. and as we all know that like dissolves like. Like dissolves like means polar solvent will be able to solubilize polar solute. Polar solvent can dissolve polar solute. Nonpolar solvent dissolves nonpolar solute. So, it depends on the structure and the property of the solute and the solvent. Then the different types of solvents. There are polar solvents, non-polar solvents and semi-polar solvents. So, to begin with, the polar solvents, mainly we have already studied that these polar solvents have high dielectric constant. High dielectric constant, due to this high dielectric constant, they are able to break the force of attraction which exists between the ions, opposite charged ions in anionic compounds. So, in this way, as we know that water has a dielectric constant of 80. So, it is able to break the electrostatic force of attraction which exists between your sodium chloride, whereas benzene which have dielectric constant 2, it is not able to break the attraction force between sodium chloride. So, sodium chloride is insoluble in benzene. Then comes dipole moment. Due to the high dipole moment of these polar compounds, they are able to induce dipole in some of the nonpolar compounds, and in this way they helps in solubilization or increase the solubility. And another point here is due to this dipole moment, they are able to hydrate a solute. They are able to hydrate a solute, and by this hydration they are able to solubilize the solute. So, the solute is miscible in the solvent. Then they have the ability to break the covalent bond of the potential strong electrolytes by acid base reaction. We can see this in this example. HCl plus water, it will give you hydronium ion and Cl minus, and thus the solubility of HCl in water increases. Then formation of hydrogen bond, which we have already discussed how these formation of hydrogen bonds increases the solubility of solute in solvent. Then comes nonpolar solvent. Nonpolar solvent basically these are they are able to dissolve the solutes which have similar internal pressure, and this we know that internal pressure is actually a measure of change in internal pressure of the system when it expands or contracts at a constant temperature. And when we discuss about this internal pressure, basically it is taken from the van der Waals force of attraction. As you must have remembered then that when we discussed about the van der Waals force of attraction, especially the London dispersion type of force, we discussed that that force was very important when we consider the solubility of nonpolar solutes in nonpolar solvents. Then comes these are the example like your oil and fats dissolves in carbon, tetrachloride, benzene and mineral oil are soluble in each other, and alkaloidal bases and fatty acids dissolves in nonpolar solvents. Then comes the semi-polar solvent. These Semipolar solvents, example is your ketone, alcohol. These have the ability to induce certain degree of polarity in the nonpolar solvents, and they act as a intermediate solvent, and as they act as a intermediate solvent, they helps in bringing the miscibility of the polar and the non-polar solvent. So, these type of solvents are mainly used as your co-solvents, and as we can see this, your propylene glycol increases the mutual solubility of water and peppermint oil. Now, next is your mechanism of solute solvent interaction. Now, we have studied all the forces which act among the solute and the solvent. We studied about the different solvents. Now, we will study about the mechanism of your solute solvent interaction, when the solubility will occur. If the solvent A and if you are taking the solute B, if the force of attraction is represented by AA, means the force of attraction between the solvent, force of attraction between solute, and this is the force of attraction between the solvent and the solute. So, this denotes your adhesive force, and these two denotes your cohesive force. Okay, cohesive force. Now, if the cohesive force between A and A, that is the attraction force between A and A, means between the solvent, is much greater than that of the attraction force between the solvent and the solute, then the solvent molecule will be attracted towards each other only, and this can be explained by taking the example of benzene and water. Water, they form intramolecular hydrogen bonds are formed. So, hydrogen bonds are formed. So, the water molecules are closely bound to each other. So, the benzene cannot penetrate this closely bound water aggregate. So, it is not able to break the water aggregates. So, your benzene will never get solvated by water molecules. So, it will not dissolve in water. Next, if your solubility between your solute and solute is also much greater than that of the attraction force between the solvent, then also the solvent will not be able to break the binding force between the solute molecules, which we just discussed for sodium chloride in benzene, because we know that sodium chloride is strong, it is held together by strong electrovalent forces, and it cannot be broken by the benzene molecules, because the force of attraction between benzene molecule is much less than that of the force of attraction between your solute in ion, for case of ionic compounds. Now, in if we want that the solute should be soluble in the solvent, the main principle is that the force of attraction between the solvent and the solute must be much greater compared to that of your attraction force between the solvent or between the solute and the solute, or these three forces can be equal. If these three forces are equal, then it will give you a ideal solution, which is practically not possible. Yes, for some compounds which we find this only when there is no difference, much difference between your solvent and the solute characters. Then example is sodium chloride in water. So, solution is formed when the solvent interaction is less than that of the solvent solute interaction, and the solute interaction is also less than the solvent solute interaction. So, after this we will start with a solubility parameter. So, to start with solubility parameter, which denotes the attraction forces, first we have to understand about the ideal solution. So, ideal solution equation, which is derived, we have derived it from thermodynamic equation consideration, and ideal solution of solid in a liquid is given by this equation. So, before starting this equation, we just want to have an idea about ideal solution. What is an ideal solution? If the force of attraction between A dash A and between B dash B and is equal to the force of attraction between A dash B, then we can say that it is a ideal solution. And in ideal solution, there will be no absorption of heat, nor there will be any loss of or liberation of heat. No absorption, no liberation of heat, and there will be no change in volume. There will be no change in volume. Now, as we consider this equation, we know that minus log x 2 and I, where this 2 stands for solute and I stands for ideal solution, is equal to del H f divided by 2.303 R. In bracket, we have T 0 minus T divided by T multiplied by T 0. Now, x 2 I, as we have already discussed here, is taken in mole fraction. The concentration is taken in mole concentration, and T 0 represents the melting point of the solute, and T represents the absolute temperature. It is taken in absolute scale and it represents the temperature of solution. Now, this del H f represents your molar heat of fusion. If the temperature, now again we will see this equation, if the temperature T is much greater than that of T 0, that means the solid solute will remain in the molten state, that means it will be present in the liquid state. So, as we are dealing with an ideal solution, so in ideal solution a liquid solute is soluble in the solvent in all proportion, So, in that case this equation will not exist, and if your T is much smaller than T 0, then your T f cannot be used. Now, the solubility of the solid depends on, in case of ideal solution, it depends on temperature, it depends on melting point of the solid, and it depends on the molar heat of fusion. What is molar heat of fusion? Molar heat of fusion is the heat absorbed when the solid melts. It is the heat absorbed when the solid melts. So, for an ideal solution, heat of solution will always be equal to heat of fusion, and this is assumed to be constant and independent of temperature, and ideal solubility is never affected by the nature of the solvent. Then we will shift to non-ideal solution. So, as we shift to a non-ideal solution, here we introduced a term known as activity coefficient. So, the activity of a solute in a solution, it is denoted by A2. A is the activity and 2 denotes the solute. So, activity of a solute in a solution is equal to the product of the concentration of that solute multiplied by the activity coefficient of the solute. So, what is activity coefficient? Activity coefficient tells us that how much the solvent is deviating the ideal solution characters, means how much it is deviating the ideal solution laws. So, this gamma 2, it represents the activity coefficient and it is taken in mole fraction scale, and it depends on the nature of solute, solvent, temperature of the solution. And if we convert this taking log, then we have log A2 is equal to log x2 plus log gamma 2, and if we want to fit it into the into the ideal solution equation, then we can use this A2 as x2i, and in place of gamma 2, that is activity coefficient, we can place it as 1. So, minus log A2 is equal to minus log x2i is equal to del HF divided by 2.303 R T 0 minus T divided by R T 0. R is your gas constant, and these all terms were explained in previously. Now, if we combine those two equation, this equation 2 and equation 3, if we combine these two equation, we will get the equation in mole fraction solubility of the solute in a non-ideal solution can be expressed as log minus log x2 is equal to del HF divided by 2.303 R whole T 0 minus T divided by T into T 0 plus log gamma 2. So, if it is an ideal solution, here in place of gamma 2 we can put 1. So, if gamma 2 is 1, then your log 1 is equal to 0. So, we can say that the mole fraction solubility in various solvent is the sum of two things. One is your solubility of the ideal solution and the logarithm of the activity coefficient of the solute. Now, this log gamma 2 is obtained by considering the intermolecular force of attraction, which is required to overcome or work done in removing the molecule from the solid molecular phases and deposit it in the solvent. Now, this process occurs in 3 steps. First, in step 1, it involves the removal of molecule from the solute phase at a definite temperature. Here we have the solutes, and here one of the solute is removed. Here you can see one of the solute is removed from the solute phase, and as one of the molecule is removed, that means we have to break the bond between the solute molecules, then only we can remove it. As we are breaking the bond between the solute molecules, so there is a work done, and that work done is represented by W22. This subscript 2 denotes solute. This subscript 2 denotes solute. Okay. So, and as the solute is removed, there is a formation of hole take place. So, due to the formation of hole, again the work done is your again W22. So, the total work done will be 2 W22, but what happens? The solute will rearrange itself. As it rearrange itself, the hole which was formed is filled up, it is covered, it is filled up, the hole is closed. So, as the hole is closed, then again the gain in work, there will be half of the work done will be gained, means there will be gain in work done will be W22. So, net energy which is there in this step is W22. First it was 2W22. First it was 2W22. Why? When as the solute was removed and the hole was formed. As the solute rearranged itself, so the hole was filled. So, there was a gain of half energy. So, it became W22. Sorry. Okay. Now, the second step, in the second step what happens, there is a creation of hole in the solvent to accept the solute molecule. The solute will rearrange itself to form a hole, so that it can accept the solute molecule. So, the energy of interaction between the solvent is W11, since W111 denote the solvent. Then the third step involves that the solute molecule which has been separated from the solute phase will occupy the hole which was created in the solvent. So, the solute molecule will occupy this hole. As it occupies the hole, so there is a gain in work and there is a decrease in the potential energy, which is denoted by W minus W11, minus W11, 11 for the solvent and 2 for the solute. So, here the interaction energy between the solvent and the solute is denoted in the subscript, and the hole which was created, it is also closed. So, additionally there was a decrease in energy as minus W12. So, the net work done in the final step is minus 2 W11. So, the total work done is your W22 plus W11 minus 2 W12, and we know that Sketchers and Henderbrand and Wood has shown that the activity coefficient is directly proportional to volume of solute and to the fraction of the total volume occupied by the solute. Now, if we take the logarithm of the activity coefficient, we can express it in this form, that is log of your activity coefficient is equal to total work done, and it is multiplied, as we know that it is multiplied with the volume of solute. So, and volume of solute, and this phi denotes the volume fraction of the solvent, and R T the gas constant, and T is the absolute temperature. Now, as we are dealing with this attraction forces work done, we know that if attraction force exists here, we know that if attraction force exists between the solvent molecule and between the solute molecules, there we consider the potential energy, and this or potential energy of interaction basically denotes the van der Waals force of attraction. The force of attraction which exists between the molecules are considered that it denotes van der Waals force of attraction. So, van der Waals force of attraction, if we consider it, then it gives that the force of attraction between the solute and the solvent is equal to square root of the product of your attraction force between the solute, between the solvent and between the solute. So, in place of W12 we can write this term, that is square root of W11 multiplied by W22. So, here when we square it and then we convert it into a very simpler equation, we get this equation, and here this W11 is your denotes your solubility parameter. Actually, this W12 denotes your solubility parameter. If W11, then it is the solubility parameter of solvent. If it is W22, then it is the solubility parameter of the solute, and the solubility parameter is denoted by the symbol delta. by the symbol delta. So, what we do? We find out the solubility parameter of the solute and we find out the solubility parameter of the solvent, and then we deduct subtract it, and then we calculate the solubility parameter, net solubility parameter. So, we will continue this in the next class. So, thank you for listening.